Frequency polygons are a way of plotting a set of group data on a graph. And this also means that you could possibly plot 2 or maybe even 3 different sets of data onto one set of axes, so you can try and compare them to see if there's anything is happening between 2 different sets of data. Now, what a frequency polygon looks like is it looks like this, where you've got 2 axes. Along the side you've got the frequency, so how often something appears, and along the bottom you've got the other variable, whatever you're looking at. And in this question it's mileage. So when you've got your groups though, and you're plotting, you always plot with the midpoint value. Now let's read this question further and then do whatever it asks, and then we'll compare 2 frequency polygons together. So Mrs. Spencer and Mr. Patel both work on the same company. In 2005 they each recorded the mileage of every journey they made for the company. The mileages for Mrs. Spencer's journeys are summarised in this frequency polygon below. And here's Mrs. Spencer's frequency polygon. We've also got the mileages for Mr. Patel's journey as summarised in this table. And we've got the mileages and we've got the frequency. Now, you remember I said you always plot with the midpoint. So the midpoint of 0 and 10 is 5. But what does this terminology here mean? 0, 10. Well, it means the mileage is greater than 0, but less than or equal to 10. And the reason we know it is equal or possibly equal is because of the line underneath. So here would be any values in this bit which are bigger than 10 but less than or equal to 20. And there's 44 times that Mr. Patel did a journey which was greater than 10 miles but less than or equal to 20 miles. Now what we're going to do is we're going to plot this information on the frequency polygon. So the first one we've got to do is 0 to 10, which is the middle is 5. So at 5 we're going to go up to 38. So 5 in the middle up to 38. So 30 to 40, there's 10 little squares there, so we're going to go up to 38, 38, put a little cross. There we go. Now you'll be using a ruler in the exam to do this. I'm not able to do that on here. So between 10 and 20 the middle is 15. So from 15 we're going to go up to 44. So 15 in the middle up to 44, and we're going to put a cross. And what you're going to do is you're going to join them up with a ruler and a neat straight line. Next, between 20 and 30, well the middle is 25, and we're going to go up to 10. So 25 up to 10, and we're going to draw a straight line going from our last point down to our next point. And finally, between 30 and 40, well the middle of that is 35, and we're going to go to 8. So this is our frequency polygon for Mr. Patel. Now, we've got 2 frequency polygons on here, and what we're going to be asked to do, more than likely, is we're going to be asked to compare the 2 sets of data. So, we've got to make 2 comparisons between the mileage of Mrs. Spencer's and Mr. Patel's journeys. Well, if you look very carefully at the end of our frequency polygon, you'll notice that Mrs. Spencer has some journeys that were between 40 and 50. And Mr. Patel doesn't have any journeys that are greater than 40. So that is one comparison we could make. We could say that Mrs. Spencer has journeys that are over 40 miles. We could also make other points. We could say that Mrs. Spencer's highest point is between 20 and 30, whereas Mr. Patel's highest point is between 10 and 20. So we could say that Mrs. Spencer appears to has more travels between 20 and 30 miles than Mr. Patel, who only has 10 journeys between 20 and 30 miles. You could also say that Mr. Patel, if you look at the very start, seems to have a far greater number of journeys between 0 and 10. So you could say that Mr. Patel does 38 journeys between 0 and 10 miles, whereas Mrs. Spencer only does 12 journeys between 0 and 10 miles. And any of those comparisons are perfectly acceptable to write down. I would try to include any numerical values. So you'll notice that I said when we're looking at between 0 and 10, I said that Mr. Patel had 38 journeys between 0 and 10 miles, whereas Mrs. Spencer only had 12. So try and include the numerical values, and that will show a greater understanding to the examiner and the marker that you understand what you're doing when you're doing frequency polygons. But a really key thing is to remember that you're always plotting the midpoint when doing a frequency polygon. And most questions take a very similar approach to the one that I've just been through.